we'll let Dave Adkisson. I know he was the first to tell me he had a schedule. He had to revise a bit to be here, so he asked if he could go first. So from the Kentucky Chamber, Dave Adkisson will speak next.
Thank you.
And anybody you have with you, Dave.
I guess that's what I get for having a diligent staff who passed along such a message, but thank you for having us. Chairman Tilley, I want to thank all the members of your committee for the opportunity to speak out on one of the biggest issues facing Kentucky's business community, and that's the illegal use of prescription drugs by Kentucky's workforce. Earlier this week, last week on Monday, 16 business groups signed a statement together and released it, saying that we favored this legislation, and that included 4 or 5 chambers of commerce. Tyler Campbell is here from the Commerce Lexington joining me today. And then also there were several business associations, including the Association of General Contractors. Ron Wolf is here with me. Also the Home Builders, Tom Underwood with the NFIB and the Small Business Caucus, and several other groups that joined together on this. You know, having this opportunity today reminds me of an event 5 or 6 years ago when I was invited to Pikeville to speak to the Rotary Club. And I gave my Chamber of Commerce, Kentucky Chamber message, whatever it was at that time. And during the question and answer period, a gentleman stood up and said, "What are you all going to do about the drug problem in Kentucky?" And I was at a loss. I thought, you know, we're the Chamber of Commerce. That's a social issue. I didn't say that. I kind of stumbled around a little bit. A woman in the audience stood up, someone you all know, Leslie Combs. This was before she was a member of your House. And she mentioned some statistics that in the typical workforce in America, I think she said 3% of employees on a given day would test positive for some sort of narcotics. And then she went on, and I won't quote the figure because I might not be completely accurate, but it was a figure that she had gotten from some study about the number of people in her region that in the workforce would test positive, not the total population, but people in the workforce, and it was an alarming figure. The business
Dave, can I mention something
Sure.
now? I think it's appropriate. I don't know, and I won't call out the exact location because I think it's unfair to that region. But there was a recent report of an opening of a facility where they had 800 job applicants and 600, and a lot of you know what I'm talking about, but 600 of the applicants, of the 800, tested positive.
Wow.
So that, just to go on, along the lines of when there's any number of statistics. But continue. I apologize for interrupting, but I thought that was an appropriate time to mention.
And I think we all recognize that the problem has worsened in that 5 or 6 year span that I've mentioned. The business community fully recognizes and witnesses on a daily basis the social drain that illegal prescription drugs have on our society, including children. But we wanted to provide a unique perspective today from an employer's perspective. The Kentucky Chamber became concerned when we started hearing from a diverse group of our 2,700 members from across the state, small to large employers, manufacturers to accountants, urban and rural, that prescription drugs and passing drug tests are among the largest burdens employers are facing in Kentucky. And we also became concerned over Kentucky's workers' comp cost. A major cost driver to Kentucky's workers' compensation system continues to be prescription drug cost. Kentucky's medical claims cost in the workers' comp program are well above the national average, and prescription drugs make up nearly 20% of the medical cost in the workers' comp system. Physician in-house dispensing has more than doubled in Kentucky over the last 4 years in workers' comp cases. And 3 of the top 5 drugs in terms of dollars paid out of the workers' comp system are recognized as Schedule 2, 3, and 5 drugs. Perhaps what is most staggering, according to experts, is not the cost of drugs that's driving up workers' comp rates, it's the utilization. It is clear Kentucky's workforce is not being rehabilitated and returning to work. Our workforce is becoming more and more dependent on prescription drugs to manage the pain. When these employees are returning to work, their impairment under prescription drugs becomes a workplace and occupational safety hazard, particularly in those environments like coal production, warehouse industries, and manufacturers, to name a few. We've been working on this with this bill with House and Senate staff, the governor's office, and of course the sponsors since late summer of 2011, giving our ideas and suggestions on how to successfully attack Kentucky's prescription drug problem. Our coalition identified the following points that we feel are critical to controlling the supply of prescription drugs to the workforce. requiring the use of Casper. You've heard about that. A 48-hour limit we think is absolutely critical on the amount that can be dispensed. Supporting multi-state interstate compacts, of course, is important. Supporting Casper information exchange in as close to real time as possible. Allowing experts in pain management protocols to sit on the various medical governing boards. And flexibility on the definition of what a pain clinic is. We're hearing from members across the state that sites known as pain clinics that were known that way as little as a month ago come back re-emerging as bariatric centers or weight loss and pain management centers. We think it's critical in any comprehensive language that this be defined as we move forward. Considering these points, we supported HB 4 and various initiatives led by Senators Higdon, Jones, and Stivers in the Senate during the regular session. We are here today to proudly support HB 1 and are pushing for its immediate passage. The Kentucky Chamber is convinced HB 1 is the most comprehensive first step that we as Kentuckians can make in addressing our prescription drug problem and putting the tools needed into law enforcement's hands to address the bad apples in our society. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and the Chamber, just know that the business community and the Chamber is behind you as you attempt to address this problem. And by passing this legislation, we think we can literally be sending the bad apples to pack their bags and leave Kentucky. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave. Members, before we go any further, Ron and Tyler, did you introduce yourselves? I'm sorry, just for the record. Go ahead.
Yes,
everybody
Ron
knows
Wolf.
you, but if you would.
Thank you, Chairman. Ron Wolf, Associated General Contractors, and also the Small Business Caucus.
Tyler Campbell with Commerce Lexington and the Small Business Caucus.
Okay. Members, do you have any questions of these gentlemen? I do. Oh, Representative Fisher, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned that in your testimony that you supported HB 4 as it emerged from the Senate. You mentioned some senators, and now you're supporting House Bill 1. Are there any differences in House Bill 4 as it emerged in the Senate versus what this bill looks like?
Well, I think the specifics were discussed when the sponsor was here. We supported in the general direction of HB 4 and various initiatives led by the senators that I mentioned. But we are in support of the general movement of what is HB 1 with the intricacies being worked out here. Is there any particular point?
That's what I was asking you. Are there any particular points of difference in those two bills, or the two bills you seem to be supporting, or is you just supporting the general idea?
Well, let me say this, Representative Fisher, while they confer, but I can tell you that one thing I noticed, and one thing I wanted to make clear that I don't know that I did in going through the differences between what is now House Bill 1 and what are some of the agreements that we've had, and what emerged from the Senate as House Bill 4 with Senate changes. Working from that, again, initial committee sub, there was still the required use of Castor as a universal screening tool for every patient, and again, being for patient protection as well, which hadn't been mentioned for harmful drug interactions and so forth. In the latest Senate version, there was no requirement to use Casper, but I did hear Dave say there's an importance in requiring the use of Casper, so that is one difference and one change I would mention. And if you know, of the points, the bullet points you mentioned in supporting, those are all covered with the exception of requiring the use of Casper. And you actually supported the use of other specialties on KVML.
Yes.
And having their ability, addiction, whether it be any
Pain
specialty, but
management.
in particular pain management and addiction specialty, I think is an important distinction you made. That would be a difference, Representative Fisher, to answer your question. That would be a difference between the latest Senate version and this one. Again, Dave, if you would go, I think you mentioned specialist flexibility on the definition. Representative Fisher, that is something that the Senate did work on, trying to expand that definition. We thought the Senate changes improved the definition. So that's why we went with that expanded definition, which you now see in House Bill 1. And again, I tried to, Dave, I missed a couple of those initiatives that you support in the Chamber, again, but you did mention the Casper use, required use of Casper, the specialist, flexibility on the definition, again, because of some of these centers coming back as weight loss outfits, which is something we'll need to address in the future, I'm sure.
Well, and Representative Fisher, one critical feature for us, which was in both, is the 48-hour limit.
That was the other one. Yeah.
It was
And that was, Representative Fisher, that's been an agreement, it's been toyed with, but that was in the latest Senate version as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Representative Hoover, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
Were you
Chairman.
through?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you three gentlemen being here and sharing your thoughts, and Dave especially. Appreciate the work that you do and the Chamber does. I don't know of any organization or group that's more active in the legislative process and involved in the issues in the Chamber of Commerce, and most all of us in the General Assembly appreciate that.
Thank
I
you.
guess my question is, are your members of the Chamber, are they informed about the role of the Attorney General that's put forth in this bill? And if so, have you had any concerns about that from any members?
There's been a lot of discussion back and forth. Let me ask Chad, who's been in on the meetings of that, what has been the heartburn?
Chad
or any-
Harpole with the Kentucky Chamber. We have not discussed within the business community the role of the Attorney General versus Health and Family Services on who's going to control the CASPER program, and that's not really a point that we're sticking to right now. We think you all know the intricacies of that and how that best works. We are, our members are very supportive of doctors utilizing CASPER to the fullest extent, but we have not discussed that within the chamber.
Okay. I just know of some hospitals and health facilities that are active members of local chambers of commerce, and I wondered if they had any particular concerns about the oversight authority that's given to the Attorney General to oversee hospitals and healthcare facilities and nurses, and that's set forth in this bill. I would think some of them would have some concern about that, and I just wonder if you all had heard any of those concerns.
Representative Hoover, Tyler Campbell with Commerce Lexington again. Representing the Greater Lexington Chamber, early on when we knew this was obviously going to be a legislative issue coming to this session, regionally, we've heard from employers that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. And to reiterate what the speaker said earlier today, this isn't a Eastern Kentucky problem. We hear about it from folks. It's an economic development issue in Central Kentucky. We internally poll our members every year, and one of the top two problems that always seem to resurface are healthcare costs and then access to a quality workforce. And within that is a drug-free workforce, the ability to find enough folks who can pass a drug screen in order to be employed. When we talk to our members of our board, I asked them, do we have reservations on this? Our board adopted the general principles outlined by Dave, again, mandatory CASPER, again, not necessarily specifically talking about the oversight, but obviously, they've watched this process unfold, and we have not been contacted by those hospitals that are on our board to say that they have reservations about these particular provisions.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And we have not, Mr. Hoover, we have not heard from hospitals on this. Of course, these issues have been in play for some time, but we've not heard from a single hospital.
Okay, thank you.
And let me say this, and I understand there's some concern, and we again, had reached, I think, a consensus between the House and Senate on the role of the Attorney General, and hope we can reach that again. I would say that the Attorney General currently has oversight authority. The Attorney General can launch an investigation now, and we've got prosecutors here. Rob Sanders and Catherine Hendrickson are here, and Van Ingram is here, and we've got folks in the AG's office. I know Mitchell Denham is here that can speak to that. The only difference being that the monitoring, the enforcement of CASPER would be moved to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General can now, again, utilize CASPER, but it would be different. And again, the Senate's version, I will repeat again, had a 20-member unit housed in the AG's office that would be segregated from the rest of the employees of the Attorney General, the rest of the deputies there. So if I'm missing something, let me know. But I think that is an accurate statement. But fair question. I just wanted the members to understand.
Well,
if you haven't prosecuted or understood, if you're not in the game, criminal justice field, you might not understand that distinction.
and I appreciate the explanation, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect, I think we are giving the Attorney General more authority than he or she would currently have under the law.
Oh, I think that's accurate.
And,
I think that is
the
accurate.
language, the Attorney General may request assistance. I don't know what assistance means, but it's clearly an oversight role of hospitals or healthcare facilities, physicians, nurses, and other healthcare professionals employed or affiliated with hospitals. That is pretty broad, and that is somewhat concerning. It's not going to keep me from voting from the bill, but I think we have to understand what that's doing. And I just wondered, knowing that many hospitals are active members of local chambers of commerce, if any of them had expressed concerns about that, because it's anyone who's affiliated with a hospital is subject to oversight by the Attorney General. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
And I can speak for my involvement in the bill since, and Pierce, you're peeking around the corner. Like, looks like my 2.5-year-old daughter when she does that to me. She goes, yeah, you're a little taller than she is, but now especially. But,
That language is put in Representative Hoover at the request of the hospital officials.
yeah.
They wanted the language in so that they could be involved in monitoring the behavior of their employees. They were left out. And that was actually brokered by the speaker. They wanted to be much stronger. We said, well, how about if it's a consultation process? So that's actually a hospital request.
You stole my thunder. That my involvement. I was going to say, as it speaks to me, that was a hospital request, and I would also say that I think we met all the hospital's concerns, and that's a legitimate concern because it does read as if there would be some hospital, and they did express that and requested that very provision. So, members, any questions of these gentlemen? We'll move along. If not.